So I'm going to talk to you about mosaic and working mosaic in the round. What I have in front of me here is a cowl that I made in the round, and you can see it has a relatively basic pattern in it that's repeated along, and you swap colours and along it goes. Okay, now the part you can see behind my hand here is where I have done a connecting stitch when I've worked in the round. So I've worked with a hook that has a cable on it, and at the end of the row I have joined the end of the forward pass to the beginning of the forward pass using a connecting stitch. Now what that does is it gives a very nice fabric that feels exactly the same as all the rest of it. And we have a wrapping along here where I've swapped colours in the mosaic. But the effect that you get on the front is that if you don't intentionally incorporate the colour change, essentially the edge stitch, into the pattern, you will get a bump in the pattern. And it's most obvious here. So see how I've got these black upside down U's. So here, this is the edge stitch here, this first pink stitch that's in here. And see, you can't avoid it. You've got one in there and it gives a little bit of a jog. Well, not actually a jog, but a jog in the pattern itself. Okay, so I actually had enough yarn left to experiment with this, so I'll show you what I've done here. I've made exactly the same thing, except I've worked flat. Okay, it is exactly the same. It has the same number of stitches along it, the same number of loops on the hook. The only difference is that I haven't worked in the round. Okay, so this is my first edge stitch. So I'm right-handed, so my edge stitch is always on the right, the first one. Okay, so here's my edge along here, and you see I've worked a tears or a Tunisian extended stitch in the first stitch along on some of the rows to keep in the pattern. Now at the other end, okay, I have kept going with the pattern all the way to the very end, to the edge stitch, including the edge stitch. So if in the pattern, so let's go for these pink ones, here's how you can see the tears down here. So instead of working an edge stitch in here, I've worked a tears. Okay, now the tears at the edge, it's a bit sloppy, okay? There's not really any avoiding that as far as I can tell at the moment. And look, I am just experimenting, so I might muck around with this a little bit more. So for now, this is July 2023. This is where I'm at with my experimenting. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to seam this. So I'm going to bring this around and I'll pop a piece of paper in behind so that the stitches are really nice and clear to see. Okay, so these black ends, that's just the start and ends of the black. Okay, so this is my foundation row down here, and this is my bind off row up here. Okay, just hide this out. Now what I've done is I've got on my bind off, I had a long tail and I've put a needle on that. Okay, now I'm actually going to sew from top to bottom, so I will spin this around in a minute, but I want to explain what I'm planning to do here. Okay, so the side that's on the left, okay, I want to hide that edge stitch completely. All right, and the reason for that, I'll just tilt my phone down and I'll tilt it back up in a minute so that you can see that, is so that I can keep in pattern. Okay, so here's, for example, this black tears that's on the edge. So in the pattern, it's supposed to be the black tears with one pink TSS in the middle and then another black tears. Okay, so if I join that up and hide the edge stitch entirely, okay, see, then there won't be a skip in the pattern. Now, I've experimented with this already, and it's not going to be seamless. It's going to have a little bump on the back, but I just wanted to show you the option, and it's also, I think, going to be a good option if you're making mosaic squares where the mosaic goes all the way to the edge of the squares. This is a method that you can use to join the squares together on the side, so on the edge stitches, not on the top and bottom, because it's a different technique, which I have made a video for, so you can have a look through my videos. Okay, so look, I'm 4 minutes 40 in, so I don't want to dilly-dally too much. So I've just spun this around. So remember, this is my bind off row on here. Now, the very beginning stitch is the only one that is slightly different from the rest, okay? So we want to make sure that the pink rows align with pink and the black aligns with black, or whatever color it is that you're using. And with two color mosaic for Tunisian, it's usually two color. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just pop my needle through the bind off loops of that first stitch and pull that through. Okay, now we're going to be using the return pass stitches. So that's, see the light pink that's in here, they're the little tear-shaped loops in there. It's the return pass stitch on here that I want to grab. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is the first stitch, is a little bit different. Okay, so I've popped it through the bind off row here, and then I want to pop it through the top of the next bind off and into the return pass loops and out the other side. Okay, just pull that in gently. All right, that's the only difference in this whole thing. Okay, now I want to connect it to the next, to the pink still on my right hand side. Now remember, this is the edge along here that I want to completely cover up. I'm just going to tilt my phone again. It's easier for me to work when it's on a slight angle because I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so in order to hide this this edge stitch, we're going to put our needle under the two return pass loops directly next to that edge stitch and pull that through. Okay, so if you think about how this is going to work, right? I'll just pull this in a little bit tighter so you can see. See what that's done? It has immediately covered up that edge stitch. Okay, so now I'm onto black. So the way that I'm working, I'm going to go left to right each time. So I've got to find the black on the left and then connect it to the black on the right. Okay, now this pink here is a Tez, and yes, it is a little bit sloppy. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is use my needle to lift that knot from the Tez just out of the way for now. Okay, and I want to find these black return pass loops, and I've already been mucking around with this, so my loops are sticking out quite easily here. Now I'm going to pop it just through those two. Okay, and pull that up, and then the black over here again into the return pass loops, which is on my immediate right of the edge stitch. Okay, now pink. Now again, here's that Tez, it's a little bit sloppy. Now we're going to do something in here. See how I've got two loops here? I'm going to work in between those two loops and pick up the return pass stitches like so. I'm actually, just because this is sloppy, I'm going to try to put my needle underneath. Hang on, no, I'm going to put it in between. Then it will hide that back loop. So note to self, like if your loops are looking a little bit sloppy, basically if you want to hide something that's sloppy, you can put your needle above it, okay, and then it will be in behind, you won't see it. Okay, so that was pink, and I need to go to pink again into my two return pass loops. Okay, so it's the same method all the way down. Then the black is, yeah, I want to work in between. Okay, so here's my edge stitch. It may be a little bit hard for you to see here because of the black, but I've got my front loop of the edge stitch, and then in behind it is the back loop. So you know how it does like a teardrop shape. Okay, I want to work in between those two stitches. Okay, so I've just lifted the front one out of the way, and then I'm picking up into the return pass loops that are just nestled in behind that. Okay, so that's essentially the technique all the way down. Okay, but I am going to keep going. You can stop watching now if you completely understand what's going on, or you can keep watching. I am wary of making my videos too long. So I'll do a couple more stitches and then I will stop the recording and keep going, and then then show you at the end. Okay, so this pink one again, this is a Tez. So this is the top loop of my Tez, and that's the back loop, and there's the little chain that's worked in the middle. So I want to work in behind it. Okay, so I lift that first loop slightly out of the way, tuck it under, and I want to pick up the pink loops underneath from the return pass. Now it's not those ones, and I can tell because it's, see that it's kind of pulling on it. If I put my needle through it like that, right, it's going to be pretty holy, and I don't want that. I want to get in behind there, but still through these loops. And you know what, it is tricky. Okay, and I've actually picked up a black loop in there just because I think it's the most logical one to do. Kind of breaking the rules a little bit, but you know what, rules don't always have to be followed, do they? Okay, so I'm back into the black again, just lifting those pink loops out of the way so I can get my needle through it. And I know it will be hard for you to see, but see, I've just lifted up the pink loops. So I want to be in between here, but I want to pick up these two black ones in behind, and then I can bring my needle back through the pink. See, there it is there. And then into the black. Now the beauty of this technique is that if you're not happy with how you've done it, you simply need to come back up here and you can give a bit of a tug on the loop that you started with. And you know, if you want to practice a little bit, it might help on that first loop that you do to actually place a marker on it, so that if you you know, you just want to practice a few times, you can put that marker on it, and then you can give that marker a yank and it will gently unravel all your stitches. But when you are finished, you can essentially just hold on to the end here and gently pull your thread taut. Okay, I'm actually quite happy with that. So I'm going to keep finishing sewing this seam, and when I'm almost at the end, I'll put the video back on and you can see the very finished product. Okay. Okay, so I have finished sewing the seam all the way along, and if I'm completely honest, I can definitely see where the seam is. Hold it here and I'll just see if you can as well. The reason why it's obvious to me is that where the seam is, it makes these big U shapes a little bit distorted compared to the others. So here's that pink one. I can feel it at the back. Okay, so it has a ridge, and that's because I've hidden the edge stitch. So there is another way of sewing this seam, which if you've watched my other seaming videos, it's already there, where you're keeping the edge stitch exposed, and that has less of a bump on the back. Okay, so this is all just going to come down to preference. Now this is going to need a really good block just to see how it is amongst everything else, and I'm not going to weave this end in until I have blocked. And I will do some tidy up with this black, and I didn't seam that last bit with the pink because I'm going to hide that end quite cleverly just with a bit of sewing in with that end there. Okay, yeah, so look, I'll just put them above each other so that you can see. Okay, so here's the seamed one and here's the working in the round one. For now, I think I'll prefer working in the round rather than seaming, mostly because of the no bump on there. So when you're wearing it, you'll never know where the seam is, and nobody's going to be able to pick it when you're wearing one of these things. It just depends on the use that you want to use your mosaic for. So like I said at the beginning, this would be a good method for seaming squares together or strips if you were so inclined. I probably wouldn't do this method on something like a jumper. My seams on jumpers where I do connecting stitches on here, like in the tesserae jumper, for example, I put that down the side, so underneath the armpit, and having that bulky section in there would probably bug me more than this slight jog in the mosaic. But yeah, as I said, it's completely preferential, and I just wanted to give you the option. So yeah, I hope that was useful for you, and yeah, let me know, give me some feedback. Thanks. See ya.